Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Exceptionally Irresistible Casual Chats, where we interview and speak to exceptionally irresistible people, people with exceptionally irresistible stories, or with exceptionally irresistible businesses and organizations. And the idea really is it's just a casual chat about life, business, and success. I am really honored today to be able to speak to our guest, Nicole Anderson, somebody who I've known for probably about 3 or 4 years now. And to give you a brief rundown of who Nicole is, well, Nicole is a graduate from Berkeley College of Music. She is the CEO of Col-Lab Productions, a production company where creatives go to become influencers. She has a passion for music and entertainment and uses it as a way to help and empower youth to achieve more. Nicole, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. As you guys can see, she's in her car because she's actively working and actively hustling and getting things done. So she was really gracious to take her time. So Nicole, thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Just pushing through.
Yeah, I
That's all
hear.
I can do. Yeah.
I hear. Well, one of the reasons why I thought of you for this segment of the exceptionally irresistible broader scheme of things really was from when we first met years ago. Again, 3 4 years ago, we met on an app called Shaper. At the time, you were looking for coaching, and we got into a coaching relationship, partnership, call it what you will. But what really stood out to me was from your where you were then to where you've gone now. It's just been an incredible story of really what it means to be coached, to coach others, kind of that idea of having this vision, this goal of something bigger and better than yourselves, breaking free of um, life scripts or generational scripts, whatever it may be, and just being able to follow along with you on your journey has been absolutely incredible. So I would love for you to share with our audience some more about that. If you don't mind going into whatever you're comfortable sharing, kind of where you came from growing up, and then what your educational experience looked like, what your career looked like, to where you are now as the CEO of an awesome production company, and achieving one of your dreams, which, if I remember correctly, is living in Atlanta, Georgia, right?
Yeah. Which is a whole nother story.
See, it's always a story.
um. I'm from originally New Orleans, Louisiana. Um. Born and raised. I grew up in church. From a Christian background. My grandfather's a pastor. Everybody in my family essentially is some type of musician or whatever the case is. Um, my mom um, was a young mom. She was a teen mom. She got pregnant when she was about 15. She also got married then. She had my sister at 16. She had me at 18. And then my dad died when she was 19, and I
Wow.
was 2, and my sister was like 3 or 4 ish or whatever. So my mom was like a widow at 19. Um, so I grew up with a young mom, trial and error in my childhood a lot. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
it was cool, but seeing her now is pretty crazy. So that's awesome. But back to my story. I don't even know what to say because it keeps changing so much. Um, I know that within my music career, me wanting to do music, when I was about 12 years old, I made the decision that I wanted to go to Berkeley. Um,
At 12.
didn't really know. Yeah, yeah, at 12. I didn't have any idea how I was gonna get there, like at all. Whatever the case is. Long story short, by the time my sophomore uh, year in high school came around, the marching band that I was playing for ended up partnering with Berkeley, and I ended up getting a scholarship to Berkeley my sophomore year. Um,
And because
so
I'm ignorant and naive as to how the non-Jewish educational system works, what age is sophomore?
10th grade.
10th grade. Okay, so that's beyond 12 years old. So already at 12, so at 12 years old, you knew you wanted to go to Berkeley, and then
Mhm.
in 10th grade, it manifested. Like the connection manifested.
Essentially, yeah, it was the craziest call ever. I can't even describe to you how weird it was, cause it was one of them things that I kind of like put in the air at a young age,
Yeah.
and it kind of just happened. It was
That's incredible.
crazy. So hey, that was a cool point in my life. What else? I mean, throughout my years at Berkeley, and being in Boston or whatever, which is a whole nother mind game of coming from the south going up to the north. First of all, it's cold.
Mm.
It's cold, and I was over and the food wasn't that good. So you gotta make your way around it. But Berkeley was hard. But within Berkeley, um, I was trying to, I guess, build something for me and figure something out. As far as just being successful in the way that I knew how. At the time, I wanted to do like a nonprofit for homeless and a nonprofit. Well, technically, two nonprofits for homeless. One for like teenagers, which was going to be a music choir, and then another one that was going to be like an apartment complex for homeless people to help them like get into the job industry or whatever the case is, help
Yeah.
them get jobs. And then there was another idea that I can't even remember. Oh, it was a school. I wanted to do a school for kids, based on the book Outwitting the Devil.
Yeah.
Since that the idea for the book has changed, the school idea is just essentially the same, um, but more or less just trying to break out of the traditional schooling that we have, in America, and actually help students build towards uh, being able to step foot in life immediately instead of like figuring it out,
Yeah.
fresh out of high school or college, or dealing with people who just only teach it. Anyway, within that, I met Baruch. I always say your name wrong. It's my
Everybody says my
tongue.
name wrong. It's totally okay.
Baruch.
There you
Baruch.
go. That's
Uh,
great.
in the midst of that, uh again, we met on Bumble, I believe. And
Cheaper.
at the time I was it was
Yeah. Bumble's, I think Bumble's a different one. Oh, Bumble's is a business specific. Doesn't matter
was it
where we
shape
met.
more or less. It was an app.
Exactly. Networking app.
Yeah, and yeah, he was teaching financial stability at the time, and I was broke because I was in college, not making much of nothing. But then again, I was also making stuff, but I was just spending it. And then we found out just how much I was spending when I had to list it out. So yeah. Anyway, I think that was 2016 actually. So I think it's been more than 5 years.
Yeah. That makes sense. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I've gotten
yeah.
old.
What else? I've dabbled in and out of like jobs and stuff like that. So, the last time me and Baruch spoke, I was actually a personal assistant for a music producer at the time. Um, but in the midst of that, that relationship kind of fell through. It just wasn't working out the way that it needed to on both sides. So, we kind of ended on good terms, I'd say. Um, and I went back to corporate for a little bit when I moved to Atlanta like 2 months ago, and then I quit that job, and I'm a freelancer on the
Nice.
road like all the time. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. So I'm doing shows and stuff, and I have a lot more music too. So that's cool.
So this is
So
all news for me because the last time we talked outside the clubhouse, um, was when you drove up. This was a couple months
to
back, right? I
Dallas.
think New Orleans had just been hit by a hurricane, so you were relocated to Texas or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
you
was in
drove
Dallas.
up
Well,
4 hours to Dallas to have a cup of coffee for an hour and a half, and then you drove back, something insane
yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. So lots of changes. That's really cool.
Yeah, my life is always changing. I just go with the flow now. I don't even
Yeah.
um yeah.
So one thing I want to talk about a little bit is because this is one of those things that I've had this conversation with many people, and life, like you said, life changes, things happen, and we have to adapt to that. And I was just speaking to in the last show I did with my guest Raziel Cohen. He was talking about how when he was a kid, he had this dream of being a Navy SEAL, which for a short Jewish kid is quite a big dream to have, because you're Jewish, so there's going to be religious challenges. Being short, there's going to be challenges there. But how it ended up manifesting itself is he's actually still in the firearms industry, but he does also a lot more safety training and various things. So his dream and the core of his dream stayed the same. Just the way the way it kind of implemented itself is different. Now you had this dream of being able to help homeless people, being able to help youth through music, through schooling. And already at the age of 12 years old, you're able to manifest something into existence in sophomore year. But that is something that it's not just like you sat back and twiddled your thumbs. I mean, okay, maybe for that one, it was divine providence or complete chance that Berkeley decided to partner up with your school. But when you were at Berkeley, you were working to get noticed, to get around the right people. I mean, I said before in the pre-show, I mentioned how like you somehow got in contact with like the president or the dean of the school or something like that, and you said, well, multiple times. Talk a little bit kind of about how you did that, kind of this vision that you have, and then the steps that you've been taking to get there, and how you adjust, because it's not always like easy. It's things come up.
Yeah. Just to backtrack on the Berkeley thing, when I was 12, don't get it wrong, I was working.
Oh yeah.
I was consistently playing music, everything that I fucking I'm so sorry. Oops.
I'll make a timestamp and we'll bleep it out.
Everything that I breathed, slept, ate, whatever the case was, I was playing music. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
I was doing something related to music, and it was put out there, and my energy matched, and that's I believe how that came about. But when it comes to like stuff at Berkeley, for me, what my head does is like I want to talk to the person who the top. I don't want to go through nobody else. I don't want to talk to assistant. I don't want to talk to blah blah blah. I want to talk to that person. Whoever name is on it, I want to talk. So if I had to go to McDonald's, I want to talk to whoever McDonald's is. I want to talk to that person, and I do my best to get to that person. And I'm annoying. I will hit you up. I will send out emails, text messages, some. Yeah, I'm on it. And when it comes to environmental changes and like coping with them and stuff, it's really, first of all, case by case basis, and second of all, it's also understanding how do you say, the need to change, or the need to, like, sometimes you won't have a choice, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
And even in the situation that I just left, some of the stuff that I was doing on the job that I was on, I told them I couldn't do. I was like, listen, this is not what we talked about me doing.
Right.
I don't know how to do this, but I had to figure it out. It didn't matter, because at the end of the day, we had to provide something. Like like when you have to get something done, that something done that you have to get done doesn't go away because you can't do it. You have to figure out how to do it. It don't even matter at that point. So it's just like what's one of them rules in 7 Habits of highly effective people? Is it another book? I forget the name of it, but think of the beginning and the end or something. Think of the end and the beginning or something like that.
Right.
Or it's like a lot of the stuff and a lot of the questions that people ask, it's really so much simple. We just tend to overthink things. Just do it.
Right. Well, oh my gosh, there's so many great points that you just brought up. First of all, thank you for that correction of saying that you were working, because 100%, but you were working on what you could work on. And that's exactly the point. The point is, in whatever situation you're in, you put in the work. You put in the work to become who you need to become, or as we say, exceptionally irresistible. You put in that work.
Mhm.
You, no matter what it takes, just put in the work. Become a better musician. Become a better artist. Become a better parent. To become a better spouse. Become a better business owner. Whatever it is, put in the work because you never know when the
Mhm.
opportunity that you've been waiting for is like that. You can't control that. I mean,
You
to an
can't.
extent, you can, right? In your wildest dreams, you never would have thought that Berkeley, the school that you wanted to go to, partnered up with the school
Mhm.
that you were at. Now,
Mm-mm.
you could have done what you've been talking about doing, which is you get in contact with the top person. But is the president or the dean of Berkeley College going to listen to a 12-year-old kid at a high school? Probably not. Even with an
Mm-mm.
impressive work ethic, maybe a little bit more. But it was only through that element, let's call it the godly element, right? Divine providence, that
Mhm.
that came into play, whether it's God or the universe or whomever it is. So I love that you said that, like, you work it, put in the work. The other thing is, with this previous role that you just had, um, where you told them like this is not what we agreed upon. So the fact that
Mhm.
you're standing up for yourself and you're standing up for what were the terms of employment or the terms of partnership or whatever it was. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of us, we we are in situations where we're like, okay, I'm just gonna take it. You don't have to just take it. Like, stand up for
Yeah.
yourself and say
Mhm.
what needs to be said, and respectfully so. And I love that you said that, like, you left on good terms. Um, but that final piece, which was just slipped my mind. Man, it's a good thing these are casual chats because I there's room for me to forget things.
Yeah.
The final piece was, what was the last thing you said?
I don't know.
Right? It just like the
Um.
brilliance comes out and we can't remember it.
Oh yeah. It
Oh, doing the
happens.
work. Like, stuff needs to get
Oh,
done. Just get it done.
it don't even matter. Yeah. It don't matter because you spend more time trying to figure out or like worrying about the problem than actually
Yeah.
solving the problem. Like you can think about brushing your teeth all day, but
Yeah.
brush them.
Let them. Right? 100%.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like to do the work, because then at the end of the day, you can point back to that. And you can tell
Yeah.
your next business partner, your next employer or customer, whatever it is, I was in a situation where I really didn't like what was happening because it wasn't what we agreed upon, but I did it anyway. And it's a great lesson for
Yeah.
your kids too, eventually, or for one
Hmm.
individual's kids. Um, so what are you up to now? Because now you're in Atlanta, living the
Hmm.
life, running around. What does that look like? What
Yeah.
what what are you practically doing now, like on a daily basis? Because you do have Collab Productions,
Yeah.
and you work within the entertainment and music industry.
Yeah. So the funny part is, I moved from New Orleans 2 months ago, and I just literally left a big gig from New Orleans.
That is hilarious.
This
Wow.
is like this. Yeah, it's so funny. I'm literally I'm like an hour out from Atlanta going back home, but I was out there for 2 weeks. I only had like one day off, this
Wow.
whole time, and then when I get back to the city, I work all week, and all next week or whatever. So essentially right now um I'm doing technically what my job would have been in corporate as an employee,
Hmm.
which is setting up corporate events and stuff like that. But I'm now freelancing that, so I just make more doing it essentially. And on
Nice.
top of that, I'm getting into like um live bands and concerts and stuff. Um, I've already played in a live band as a vocalist and a
Yeah.
drummer. I've helped artists. I've done a few things, but now it's my turn to be an engineer. So I decided to be an engineer. So I literally recently started doing or subbing rather for the engineers at this mega church out in Atlanta, which is pretty cool because I'm working on boards, like mixing boards that I would have never thought I'd
Wow.
be working on so soon. I've only been in Atlanta 2 months, and I'm tracking good ground, I must say, because I'm very impatient. So when
Yeah.
something isn't moving, like I want to say about my 6 week at being in a job again, I was like, this ain't working.
Yeah.
I feel like I be doing so much more than what's happening, and I am disappointed right now. I need to quit, and I quit. And
Wow.
sure enough, um, it was automatically better. Don't get me wrong, everything isn't all good in tissue and candy and stuff. Like it's
Right.
a learning barrier, especially when you're moving from out of uh the employee mindset to a business mindset. I didn't know how rough it would be until people started asking me for certain documents, and I'm like, I need
Wow.
to get on that. Yeah, yeah. So, um, anyway, my daily life is essentially running events and operating certain events, whether it be like video, whether it be audio, whether it be setting up the event or breaking it down or whatever. Typically, that's what I'm doing.
So what was that transition like? Because you knew that you needed to get out of the job. You knew that the 9 to 5 employee life just was not for you. Working for somebody else,
Hmm.
doing which, by the way, that's almost that's been in you the entire time. Like when we first talked in 2016, like you knew that you knew you were going to do your own things. There's a process to get there, but then actually taking
Hmm.
that leap, that's a massive leap to take. What was that like? How do you get yourself to do that? Because I know that it's very difficult for a lot of people, myself included. I still have my day job.
Yeah, yeah. I want to tell you that I've quit my job at least I don't know how many times, but within this year, definitely twice already. Because when I was in New Orleans, I was like, I quit. I can't do this job no more. Cause like in New Orleans, when I was working as a at Jam Nola as a tour guide or a storyteller, whatever. Um, every time I went there and I stayed for longer than an hour, my soul, like I just felt this burning sensation in my body, like leave.
Yeah.
This
Wow.
is not it. Like this is not for you. Like it's easy and yeah, like the pay is okay, blah blah blah, but this is not it. This is not yours. Leave. So I left, and that's when I started working with the producer or whatever. That stopped, blah blah blah. Anyway, when this happened, this time that I quit, um, I remember that I was already debating quitting because, first of all, when I got to Atlanta, the only reason why I came off of furlough, because technically I was still on furlough with the company that I was with in
Hmm.
Boston. The only reason why I came off furlough was to get a gateway into Atlanta. Um, just to like have something flowing in the meantime while I essentially got whatever I needed on the side to happen for me to quit anyway. So I already knew I was gonna quit. I just
Right.
didn't know it was gonna be in 2 months.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I think the last straw for me was like when I got to my first of all when I got to my last paycheck and I was working. I want to say about 40 hours to 50 hours a week with overtime, and I was bringing in less than $1,000 in those 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I was just like, first of and it's a production company. So production companies make a lot of money, a
Right.
lot. And they're also very, very, at this point, any production company that you can think of, they're very, very well understaffed. So the staff that they have, they need that staff.
Hmm.
So when like losing staff is terrible right now for production because they have to figure that out.
Right.
But um back to what I was saying, like me looking at those checks and me like knowing that I'm literally feeling like I'm wasting my time, knowing that I want to do so much more because I still want to do government contracting. That's what initially got me to go ahead and buy my LLC because I want to do work with the government. Um, as far as getting government contracts that are available to people anywhere, federal contracting. Look it up. It's crazy. Anyway, and then I want to say that right before I quit, I went back home to do Jazz Fest. And when I was doing Jazz Fest, I was a recording engineer on stage. And one of the stages that I was standing on, when I tell you, I literally stood on a stage with Erica Badu, with Nelly, with Busta Rhymes, with Big Frida, and I'm watching them walk past me like I'm on stage. I'm backstage watching these people. I have a pass in my hand, and I could be back here, and I'm with legendary artists that I've listened to all my life. I was like, I'm quitting that job. I'm
Wow.
quitting. It's over. Nah, I don't have to do this.
But
if
you
if
have
I
to
could do
be.
if
Keep going. Keep going.
nah, I'm just saying if I could stand on stage and make this happen and make the same amount of money that I made in a week, uh, versus 2 weeks, I can switch over and do something completely different
Right.
because I know that I can do better for myself,
Right.
at least. So, the moment I came back in town, I told my boss, I was like, I quit. I'm putting in
Wow.
my 2 weeks notice.
That's incredible because it's also it's acknowledging the fact that like to a degree you achieved what you wanted to achieve, or you see yourself being able to lay down the foundation to be able to achieve that. So
Hmm.
it's you have to recognize what's out there. You have to recognize what God has given you, and that like he's saying, hey, like Nicole, you're doing this, so just do it.
Hmm.
why serve somebody else's purpose if you can serve your own? It's not easy, and I'm sure it's
No.
scary, right? But
Oh yeah.
but you figure it out along the way, and as long as you're willing to put in the work, and I think that's incredible.
Yeah. 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 Um. It's there's like if anybody's watching and they're like, it's supposed to be hard.
Right.
It's supposed to be a mind game. It's supposed to bring everything out of you that you didn't know you had, to be honest. Like it's supposed to be a leap. It's supposed to feel like you don't know what's happening next. It's supposed to feel like that. So like it's hard, but at the same time, it's like I guarantee you your value is way more than what you think it is. And you don't even have to like whatever you going through, it don't even have to go down like that. I promise. It really
Wow.
don't. Just look, keep pushing. I'm not saying quit your job. I'm just saying you better than that job. That's all I'm saying.
We
You
have to
better
put a
if you
disclaimer in the audio over here. Do not quit your job.
do not do not like I stepped on faith, okay? And
Yeah.
like sometimes I be having to do that, but listen, it's I'm doing a complete faith walk. I can't tell
Yeah.
you what's gonna happen next. I cannot tell you. It's just happening, and I'm going with the flow. I'm letting God use me, work through me, and whatever it is. And I'ma just, I'm still using the stuff that Baruch taught me 5 years ago for finances that I'm still trying to get together in my life or whatever. So it's a process,
Yeah.
and don't be like understand that the journey is more important than the goal, because you learn on that journey. It's hard,
Yeah.
it's frustrating, you cry, you you sometimes you even get stagnant. It's happened to
Oh
me
yeah.
before. I've frozen up before. But I get out of it because I have to. Because at the end of the day, it's not just for me, especially when you building a legacy. So it's like,
Wow.
hey, be the power that you are. That's all I gotta say about that.
Wow. You are dropping knowledge bombs right now. I'm getting goosebumps. Um, wow. Okay, I love what you said about walking on faith, stepping on faith, and like you don't know where you're going because I mean you don't, but you're doing it. You're figuring it out
Yeah.
because I think that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing, and this is something I'm personally working on. And I speak about it all the time. I'm very open about the fact that I have a counselor. I also love the fact that my counselor is a pastor. I think it's the funniest thing that God could have ever curated that an Orthodox rabbi is going to a Christian pastor for counseling. But I absolutely love him because he's amazing. But that's one of those things that
Yeah.
we're working on is that idea of working beyond fear and working on faith and
Mhm.
understanding that we may not know what's going to be in store for us in the next month, in the next year, in the next 2 years. For example, somebody has an amazing job offer for me 2 years from now. They're building something, and they're confident that within the next 2 years, it'll be the job that I've been praying for my entire professional life.
Mhm.
but I don't know if that's what God has in store for me. It's something that I want, but it's also 2 years from now. I don't know who I'm going to be or where I'm going to be. All I
Yeah.
know is that today I need to do the work that I need to do, that I can do to continually grow, to become better, to become a master at my trade, to become an expert at my trade, whatever, whatever it may be. And then just keep
Mhm.
walking and stop trying to control things so much. Because the sooner we let go, I like to say, let go and let God. The sooner we
Yeah.
let go and we let God take over, we tie into faith, we plug into faith, that's when things will really start working. I mean, what control did you have at 12 years old? Nothing. Not
None.
really. The only control you had was
Yeah.
what the effort that you were putting in right then and there into your craft. And look
Yeah.
how God directed you. And one of the things Gary Vee talks about all the time is, don't look at a job as a way of making money, as a way of getting a paycheck. A job is solely there to teach you something. I
Mhm.
would go out on a limb to say that every single job you've had, you've either learned more about your craft, about your trade, or you've learned more about yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Some good, bad, and ugly, and some
Right.
that's great. But like, hey, life.
Yeah. Um, so switching tracks a little bit, what is, when you hear the term exceptionally irresistible, what does that mean to you? Whether in your personal life, your professional life, or just in general?
Mhm. I think I said this on Clubhouse last time. When it comes to irresistible people, there is no denying that the person is irresistible. Like, like if somebody walked in the room and you just can't help yourself of walking up and finding out who they are, like that's an irresistible person, and they're here for a reason, or they're just stepping into like who they are, and everybody has that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's just a matter of uh knowing yourself, or not. I won't even say knowing yourself, just understanding that you really are a powerful being, that you really do spew
Wow.
off, electricity that
Yeah.
either attracts or doesn't. Um, like um, it changes for me from time to time too. I wasn't always the person that people wanted to talk to. I would have never thought in a million years this would this would
Yeah.
ever be a thing. I'd be on somebody's show, or somebody would be asking me, to do a podcast. Never thought that anybody would want to listen to something that I had to say the least. So, like I'm a like people are meant to evolve, okay? And in that evolution, you will become. It's just what you focus on, really, and how you manage your mind, how you're able to really just navigate through what you've come to terms of what God
Mm.
is.
Wow.
That's the best way I could describe it. Because once I found out, or once my relationship with God was an understanding that, like, we are God. In my situation, it's everybody doesn't think the same way. So insert whatever you believe God is
Right.
in the blank, and be that, and I promise you, you're gonna be irresistible. It's just it's not
Wow.
hard. It's not hard. I promise you, it's not hard in the sense of how to get there. It's hard in the sense of defeating yourself,
Jeez.
overcoming that person you are. That's all it is. It's overcoming you. It's not hard. It's just breaking through whatever cycles, whatever, and just being it.
Wow. If this mic weren't an expensive mic or expensive to my standards, I'd be dropping it right now because that was, oh my gosh. I'm gonna be watching this again and again. So much great value here. You need to start your own podcast, your own show.
Yeah,
And you've
yeah.
got the equipment to do it and the knowledge.
I actually do have the equipment to do it.
See?
I wanted to do a podcast called Mind of Men, because I felt
Okay.
like guys were so like misunderstood or whatever. And I just wanted to create a platform where they had the freedom to say like whatever they want with no judgments or whatever. They just were being, themselves as men or
I
whatever.
love
But
that. I love
yeah,
that. And that was even something you mentioned on the Clubhouse a couple weeks ago, where like as you were signing off, you said something along. I wish I remembered what it was, but you said
I said
something
men
along.
don't get enough credit
There you go.
nowadays. It's tough. Um, it sucks. I think because even with me saying that, I have mixed emotions about it too, given my background. I didn't mention
Mhm.
like all of my background because I'm trying to make sure that my story, is more
Right.
so not geared towards the hurt that I felt, but more geared towards um uh I want to say the success or just
Hmm.
the positive aspect of it. So it's just like
Love
I
it.
don't want to attach myself to you by you feeling sorry for me or you being like, oh my God, you've been through this. It's more so like you're just a person who
Right.
is like, becoming. So I wanted to take
I
out
love
like the
that.
sad stuff. But
So I love what you
but
said there. The men
yeah.
don't get enough credit. I'm not saying that just because I'm a man, but
No.
it's really more the mindset behind it. And listen,
Mhm,
we're at a time now in our country where and in the world where people are just at odds. Republicans hate Democrats, Democrats hate Republicans. I just find it. There's division everywhere. So the fact that we can take a second, that you can take a second, that I can take a second to think about the other person, whether the other person's a Republican or a Democrat or a conservative or a liberal or a guy or a girl, whatever it is, and just acknowledge that the other side doesn't get enough credit. My wife
mhm,
is, Bashatova, she's due, actually, she was due at the time of this recording 3 days ago, right, with our third child. So I don't know, by the
mhm,
time this goes live, could be we'll have a new addition to our family or not. I don't know.
mhm,
But I was just thinking about like she doesn't get enough credit. I don't give her enough credit for all that she does, and
mhm,
not just as a mother, and not just as a wife, but as an individual. So the fact that you can take the time to just acknowledge that, especially when, like you
mhm.
said, nowadays men don't get a lot of good positive credit or feedback,
No.
but the other thing, what I more important, less important, whatever it is, the other thing that's big there is that idea of focusing not on the pain and the suffering, or not on the we say in the Jewish world there we it's a Yiddish, like a Russian Hungarian Jewish saying, we say poo poo, which doesn't mean what you think it does, but it's like when somebody's something bad happens, you say, oh, poo poo, like I don't know why. I actually have to look into that. But not looking at like the sorrow that somebody experienced, but rather, like you said, who they're becoming. I do
Yeah.
feel that our past experiences
Mhm,
help create us to be
mhm.
who we want to be and all that we can be. Because at the end of the day, I do
Absolutely.
believe God does not give us a challenge that we cannot handle. He does not give us
Yeah.
something that we're not meant to handle or overcome. So it's a big concept to be able to acknowledge, look back at where we came from, and use it to propel us forward. And that's something that I
Mhm,
think we all need to do. And then, but like you said, focus on who are you becoming? Where do you want to be?
mhm.
What do you want to do? How do you want to live?
It all comes back to you. It's nobody else. It will never be no. There's no one else who will have the question or
Yeah.
who will have the answer. Like it's you. Like you
Right.
you can definitely have people along the way that can help you find the answer, but at the end of the day, it's you. The answer is within you. I promise you, at the end of the day, it's you. What you're going through, it's you. What you
Yeah.
get, it's you. Karma doesn't know right or wrong. Karma is just reacting on what was put out.
Right.
So like
Wow.
I found what I forget his forget the Indian guy. Um, the he's not considered a monk. I forget his name. Sadhguru.
Okay.
Sadhguru. I was listening to him, and that's what he said. He said there's no such thing as good or bad karma. It's just karma.
Right.
So it's just like, um, just be cognizant. And outside of the karma stuff, like when it comes to your brain, like the power of the mind is so extensive beyond what we can even conceive. And like that's what makes us so malleable, one, and that's what also makes us so glass like. It's crazy.
Hmm.
It's all in our head.
Wow.
But anyway,
I
I
think it's
hope that
also understanding, like what you said, is you are God. You are a godly being. Like God created you. God instilled himself in you. So even if you don't think that you can do it, well, you don't have to
Mhm,
do it. God's doing it. One of the books I'm reading now, which I absolutely love, um, it's called The Prayer Circle. No,
mhm.
what's it called? It's not called The Prayer Circle. It is called, oh my gosh, why is this happening? The Circle Maker, right? It's called The Circle Maker.
Uh-huh.
Again, written by a Christian pastor. And he uses the story of there was a guy in Jewish history, a rabbi. His name was Chani Hamagel, which means Chani the Circle Maker. And the story is essentially that in the times of the Jewish temple, there was a drought. So the people of the village called this Rabbi Chani to come out and pray for them, pray for rain. So he goes out into the
Mhm,
field, he draws a circle around himself, he stands in the field in that circle, and he says, God, I am not moving from this circle until you bring rain. And so it starts to drizzle. And he says, that's not good enough. We need rain that'll fill our cisterns and our wells. So it starts to pour. And he says, no, that's not the rain we need. We need rain of blessings and sustenance or whatever it was. And then it starts to rain at the right, the right amount. So the author, I believe his name is Mark Batterson, uses this as a metaphor for prayer. I mean, it's not a metaphor. This is what prayer is, and he talks about this concept of prayer circles and drawing circles around those things that you want. And he has his own personal experience about how when he moved to Washington D.C. to start a church there, he literally walked a 4 mile, we'll call it a radius, in an area and praying to God the entire time. And over his 15 years of being a pastor there, various
mhm,
buildings and institutions ended up becoming a part of his church. So there was a movie theater that he walked by, didn't even realize it. 10 years later, it ended up becoming a part of his church. There was a building that at the time was owned by some guy who's never going to sell it. 15 years later, he ends up selling it to the church, and they turned it into like a mall and or a shopping center and a coffee shop. So all these things, like this is the concept of prayer circle. But what he talks about, which is fascinating, is the fact that our dreams are so big because we're dreaming in a way that we feel we can accomplish. What we have to remember is that God's dreams are an infinite amount of times bigger than our dreams are. So his dreams for us are infinitely greater than we could ever have possibly imagined. So when we're setting out to do something, understand we're doing the work, but God's really the one making things happen. And because we are godly and we have a godly spark within us, or whether you say God or the universe or the force or whatever it may be, like again, like you said, whatever the person prescribes to, you know, it's gonna happen. And we have to remember that we're doing so much of the work and he's really the one pulling the wagon. So I love what you said there about how it's like yeah, you do the work, but you are God. It's incredible.
it's faith.
Yeah.
Um, you never really understand what faith is until you realize that it's not just like you know, just like something to do. It's a state
Yeah.
of mind. Um, so I forgot where I was going with it, but I just know the stronger my faith got, the the more my life just unpeels in such a
Wow.
cinematic way. Um, uh, and even you said that God's plan is infinitely what
Greater or bigger.
greater. I would even stretch it to just be like God's plan is infinite.
Yeah.
It's just infinite. It's like um I thought I'd be, performing on stages by now. I thought I'd be a millionaire by now. I'm 27. I'm like, this clock is ticking, God. I'm not rushing. But anyway, no, nah, it's just there's just so much to unpack. I could only laugh about it sometimes because it's
Yeah.
just like the only thing I could wake up sometimes and say, even when I'm mad or upset, or in states that I feel like I can't change, God is good.
Yeah.
That's it.
True.
But yeah, God is infinite. Um, even when it comes to planning, like you said. And again, the end goal may not necessarily look like how you want it to look. I can say that some of the stuff that I've asked for or that I've wanted to create, it's not that I didn't get it. It's just that it didn't look like
Right.
what I put in my head. It really didn't. It just it looked like something else. So I know that whatever I'm doing is working. It's just that, like, just trust.
Yeah.
If you don't trust nobody else or nothing else, God, I
Wow.
promise. Like, I know people be on the fence, like, it's got real, blah, blah, blah. Trust me, that force is wild, and you're that force. I
Yeah.
promise. I promise. But
Wow.
yeah.
I think there's no better way to end it. I think that's it. Not that there's no better way. I think that is one of the best ways to end this segment, this show. I was absolutely incredible. Before we do sign off, I do want to say that if one of our viewers or listeners would like to be a guest, or if you know somebody who they themselves are exceptionally irresistible, or like Nicole, you have an exceptionally irresistible story or exceptionally irresistible business or organization, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. In fact, don't only not hesitate, do reach out to us, either through our website at uramikirkus.com or at our email address, exceptionallyirresistible@gmail.com. Thank you all for joining us today. Please leave comments. Let us know your thoughts, your biggest takeaways. I cannot say how impressed. I mean, I knew this all along. The truth of the matter is, I really did know how genuinely genius you are. That's one of the reasons why we invited you on the show. But the fact that you're 27 years old, I'm only saying it because you said it. The wisdom that you dropped just now, like the knowledge bombs, the wisdom, and it's wisdom of experience. So, Nicole, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing. What is the best way for our audience to get in contact with you, whether professionally or whether on a personal level, if they want to hire your expertise, because you definitely are? What's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
All right. All right. For my religious folks, bear with me on my Instagram handle. Okay. All right. I'm just going to spell it out and we'll go from there. All right. On Instagram, you can follow me at YOSHITPOO. And no, I'm not changing it. Okay. Anyway, that's where, if you want to do creative stuff or whatever the case
Awesome.
is, you can hit me up on there. If you would like to get to me to my email, you can do getnicolenow@gmail.com. GETNICOLENOW@gmail.com. And I can get to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you again for sharing your story with us, sharing your wisdom with us. And we look forward to seeing some great things coming from you in the future, some great music things, but also a lot of that communal giving back that you've been talking about.
Oh, yeah, it's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
I
Oh, I believe
promise.
it. I believe it.
It's going
Anyway,
to
thank
happen.
you all. Have a wonderful night.